So earlier in the season, I asked this question: what would you like to know? And a lot of you guys sent me really good feedback, which has been much appreciated. And I have made so much video content off the back of that. A lot of the questions were some of them, that I was expecting, like, my inspiration for designing a garden, or how do you design a garden, or where do you start? And yeah, as I've said, I've made lots of tutorials on that, and they're coming out very soon. But one of the questions a lot of you asked, which I wasn't expecting, was an introduction to me video. So like about myself, how I got into horticulture, and like where I am right now. And I didn't really think about this, but actually it only came to my attention. I've never actually done a video about that before, and I've never documented that side of the journey. So it's probably a bit late to the game, but here we are. So hi, my name is Phil. I live here at Yew Cottage, and I'm 30 years old. So I think how I'm going to divide this up is I'll do an about me section and then an about the property section. So Yew Cottage Garden is the name of my socials, and Yew Cottage is the name of the property. So yeah, this location has been in like my father's sort of like bloodline, so to speak. So my uncle and my cousin sort of farm the agricultural land in this area, and we live right beside their fields. And the reason this location is called Yew Cottage and why it's Yew Cottage Garden is because of the yew tree that's situated sort of right in the middle of this whole site. The yew tree is the pinnacle. It's the first thing you see. It's the first thing anybody sees, and it just grounds everything. It grounds the garden, it grounds the property, and it's just a real statement piece. It just kind of sits nestled, as I said, centrally to the site. To put into context how long the yew tree has been here, my grandmother's relatives in their day remember it being here, and like they can't remember it predating any of them. So it's been here a really long time. Like my granny had a swing on this tree, so like which isn't that long ago, but it was a big tree in her day, and it's still a humongous tree now. So the architect had said to my dad, look, we'll just cut the tree down and we'll do one of those like split level bungalows where you can, because our house is on a 10% slope, where you could then have a garage underneath the house and the whole house would be one level above the garage. And my dad was like, no, straight away off the cuff, no, that's not happening, the tree stays. So needless to say, we don't have a functional garage as such. We do have a garage behind the property, but it's not accessible via car. And the yew tree stayed. And then 35 years ago, my mum and my dad moved to this location and they planted some oak trees. So we have an oak tree lined avenue, which is fantastic because this was before my time. So as I mentioned, I've turned 30. These trees are 35 years of age, and they're roughly about 8 years of age when they were planted. So the trees are like 40 years old. So I've had lots of great structure to work from then for this garden. So I graduated in horticulture in 2012 with the Cosbury Cochrane Penuptial Plants Person Award, which is just like for having distinction level in plant idents at the time for the topic that I'd done. And then I spent the next sort of 6 to sort of almost 7 years working in a garden centre. I worked there 2.5 years part-time, and then the rest of it was full-time. This is my dream job. It was my biggest regret ever having to move on. It never felt like a job. It never felt like I was working. It was just the best job ever. I really enjoyed the group of people I was working with. I got to do all these really amazing plant displays, and I got to work all these amazing plants, and I just got to work with the suppliers and really amazing customers that were really plant passionate people, and just the whole buzz of the retail and the hype, and like always planning ahead, and the Easter rush and the Christmas rush and the autumnal rush, and thinking of different display ideas, and always trying to think of the next new innovative thing. And yeah, it never felt like work. If anything, it was a giant playground. The fact that I got paid to work there was just incredible. And then Brexit happened, and I had moved on from that job role, but I always had kind of wanted to work in the harder landscape category. I felt that a lot of my college and my job that I was doing at the time was all sort of soft landscape based, and I wanted to work a wee bit more in the hard landscape industry. So I was then sort of for the next 5 or so years working in a job that sort of manufactured paving products and sort of exterior walling and other types of products, and I'd done that for 5 years. And at which point I fell into like a learning and development role, and then I moved on to the current job that I do now, which I'm a digital content creator for a company, and I basically make a lot of interactive e-learning content, and just sort of to make learning simpler for people on their onboarding process as they join that company. So yeah, people are quite shocked at that because they think gardening is my full-time job. Unfortunately, sustainably, I've never found a way to make gardening my full-time job yet. I do gardening on the side. So for example, I do garden design and I can give advice, and I've done like sort of other garden jobs in the past. And if you want any information on that, you can find a means to contact me in my bio. So just please ask me any questions and I'll get back to you as best I can. But yeah, I've never done this like full-time, but sometimes it is nice to have just a nice separation of doing two different job roles. So like I love my digital content creation role. Again, it's something really creative that I really enjoy doing. I get really good job satisfaction from that, and it just gives me this really good life balance, which I'm absolutely loving. But yes, anyway, whilst I was studying horticulture and I was also working in the garden centre, my parents had the opportunity then to buy basically a small field in front of the house, which is actually the area I'm sitting in now. So a lot of my garden has only really been created from about 2014, when I was kind of like a teenager, kind of going into my early 20s. So we got the opportunity to buy this small field, which we've now extended into our garden. So you know, I'm really blessed. Obviously, I had all the structure from those amazing oak trees and the yew tree, so that has kind of formed a really good skeleton structure in the garden. Everything after that was just kind of like, you know, all the herbaceous stuff, all the shrubs. So I've never had to really invest in really big trees as such, which has been brilliant because this garden is done basically on a budget. Like, people are shocked how little I spend on this garden. It could be up to about £1,000 a year or less. I don't have lots of money to invest in the garden. My parents don't have a lot of money to invest in this garden. I say they did buy, you know, this small site and we extended the garden, but that was as far as their budget could really go to. And you know, with kind of where we are now in the world and like cost of living and everything, it's just, you know, gardening is a luxury. You know, it's not something, if you're doing it as a hobby, you're doing it in small steps. So I was kind of lucky that I was working in a horticulture industry whilst kind of doing this garden, because I was picking plants up at the time, and as I was doing displays and stuff and different like merchandising ideas, I thought, oh, you know, I'd love to actually recreate that in my own garden. I also done, like a lot of young people, I done a lot of solo travel then when I was younger. So I was going to like lots of really cool places and getting inspiration, like Venice and Rome and Barcelona, Marrakesh, Malta, Turkey, like just, you know, all those places that young people go to. And I done a lot of that, and then that brings us basically up to the pandemic, and that grounded everything to a halt. And to be honest, the garden was in a good way, but it could have been better. Like it you know, it needed to be better. And to be honest, the pandemic gave me a really good kick up the bum, because I invested a lot of time here. Basically all my evenings, all my mornings, all my free time was kind of out here, because obviously, like a lot of folk, I couldn't go anywhere. I was grounded here, but it was much needed. I look back on those years now and I think to myself, oh my goodness, to have all that free time again, to be able to be out in the garden all the time and just doing something that I was really enjoying, I would give my left arm off for it. But yeah, so because, as I mentioned, like the garden is obviously on a very elevated slope. So we have the top level here, which the property's on, so like up there, and then there's the log wall, and there's this level I'm sitting in now, and I kind of do like a lot of my videos here. I class this as level 2. So we have level 3, level 2, then the lower level, which is the pond and kind of all the borders that wrap around the pond, then that's level 1. So say we've just worked with the natural contour of the land. Like, there's no retaining walls, there's no retention, and I think that's the best way to work with a slope, is work with what you've got. Don't try to fight against it. Like, I mean, you know, I suppose if funds had allowed it, you could have just come in here and bulldozed everything and made a really flat site. But ideally, you know, it's probably better to work with your site. And I think it gives the garden more character, because we do have 3 distinctive zones, which, you know, in my opinion, works really well for us, but it maybe wouldn't be the most practical for all maybe age groups. But, you know, right now, at my stage in life, you know, I love it. I love it how it is. So then I was very lucky, I suppose, with all my garden work, and I've been vlogging all the content, as you know, for quite a while now. I got contacted then by RTE in 2021, and they were doing a show called Ireland's Garden Heroes, and that was with Jimmy Blake, Niall Maxwell and Ingrid Swan. And this was an amazing experience, because although I was vlogging my content and doing videos, I'd never done actual television before. It was a wee bit daunting at the time, and you sort of felt, you know, at the time you sort of accept it. You're like, yes, I'm going to do it, and then it actually happens, and you're like, ooh, and then you have all these like thoughts of, oh, could it go wrong, or, you know, what's going to happen on the day type thing. But no, it was a really good experience, and, you know, was really pleased that like I had done that. And then the following year, Channel 4 had contacted me, and then they were doing a show called Garden of the Year. This one sort of scared me more, because the category of gardens entered were to a really high standard, and like extremely high standard, and I was kind of like really scared of how that was going to go. I was the only contestant from Northern Ireland to feature in that show, but everything went so smoothly, so well. You know, I couldn't have praised the team that done that further. It was just so cohesive, a really good experience. That was with Zoe Ball, Minaj Malday and Lachlan Ray. It was actually filmed on 2 different days, which scared me a lot, because a lot of people don't realise with television, sometimes it's not all just done on one take. So all the drone footage and all like the wide angle shots were done a week before, which scared me because then the actual crew and cast and everybody else in my bits was done 1 week after. And I thought, oh no, how's this going to gel on television? Because in the middle of July, when the garden can nearly change every day, I thought, oh, some things are going to be out of flower, some things are going to come into flower, it's not going to gel. But no, it worked really smoothly. I was really happy with all the outtakes. It was great. And then later that year in 2022, Rita Fitzgerald from UTV Live came here, and we done a small piece on that, just sort of off the back of that show. And then also just on a sideline, I've done various bits with Helen Marks from Gardener's Corner on BBC Radio Ulster. And yeah, I always love meeting Helen and David. So, you know, anytime like they're over, it's always great just to sort of record something with them. That's been fantastic. And then in 2023, I've been focusing a lot on myself and the tunnel and trying to sort of set up kind of like a nursery style thing, which I'm still sort of toying with that idea of pursuing that. Basically because I've been growing all my own plants and so many people were contacting me about plants, you know, I decided, well, I've got so many now, I will sell some. I'm propagating on a larger scale than ever before, which is fantastic, and it's all down to just the luxury of having the tunnel and just that wee bit of extra space, which has been great. But then in 2023, my mother entered me into a competition, Adobe's Not Your Average Gardener competition for the indoor gardening category, which I won in. That was fantastic. I won a £1,000 gift card for Dobby's Garden Centres, which was crazy. It still blows my mind. I've never won a single thing in my life before. And yeah, to be honest, I still can't process that's happened. But yeah, absolutely great experience. I was really over the moon with that. So that very nicely brings us to where we are now. And yeah, I'm going to end the video there, but if anybody has any questions or wants to ask a question, please feel free to leave a comment or private message me and I will answer as best I can. And as always, thank you so much to everybody that supports this channel and gets in touch and asks questions and reaches out and, you know, leaves comments and stuff, because it's really appreciated. You know, there is a lot of the behind the scenes stuff like editing all these videos that goes on that a lot of people don't see, and it's always really good that, you know, people get in touch and leave feedback, so it's much appreciated. But yeah, bye for now.